These men are Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikoladze, Leopig Leonor, Nicola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI.
That was Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna revealing 6 names that the DOJ had redacted from the Epstein files. Names that only came to light because he and Republican Congressman Thomas Massie physically went to the DOJ to review the unredacted files. This is apparently how this process actually works. Members of Congress don't just get the files emailed to them, they go in person to a reading room at the Department of Justice, sit at designated computers, currently there are only 4, and read through the documents one by one on screen. They can take notes, but they can't take pictures or bring any electronic devices in with them. That means these Congress people have to sit down at a computer and skim through millions of documents and write down everything they want to remember. Now, according to Khanna, 70 to 80% of what has been released is still heavily redacted.
Now, my question is, why did it take Thomas Massie and me going to the Justice Department to get these 6 men's identities to become public? And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files.
And even more concerning, Khanna has made the claim that the administration scrubbed the files back in March before the Epstein Transparency Act even passed. Now, take a look at what he had to say about that.
But the story gets worse. The reality is that Donald Trump's FBI scrubbed these files in March, long before Thomas Massie and I passed the Epstein Transparency Act.
Thank you, Mr.
Now, my bill is clear. The Epstein Transparency Act requires them to unredact those FBI files. And yet the Justice Department said to me and to Congressman Massie, we just uploaded whatever the FBI sent us. And guess what? The FBI sent scrubbed files. That means the survivor's statement to the FBI, naming rich and powerful men who went to Epstein's island, who went to his ranch, who went to his home and raped and abused underage girls or saw underage girls being paraded, they're all hidden. They're all redacted. It's a little bit of a farce. They're inviting all the members of Congress to go to see the Department of Justice, quote unquote, unredacted files, but they've got all redacted files from the FBI. And it's not the fault of the Justice Department attorneys. They were just told upload things that Donald Trump's FBI had already scrubbed.
On top of this, Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland's 8th District and a ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee says he went through the unredacted files as well, and he's pointing to specific redactions that to him don't make any sense. For example, Raskin says he found what appeared to be an email chain between Epstein's lawyers and Trump's lawyers from 2009, allegedly discussing whether Epstein was a member or a guest at Mar-a-Lago. Now, according to the document, Trump's side said Epstein was a guest, had never been a member, and was never asked to leave. The entire exchange was redacted in the files that were publicly released.
Did you see names of any potential co-conspirators that were redacted?
Well, you know, I saw the names of lots of people who were redacted for mysterious or baffling or inscrutable reasons.
Are any of them well-known individuals?
For example, you know, Mr. Wexner, his name was redacted from a government document. And I couldn't understand the logic of that. He was not a victim, and his name has appeared other places. Now, the Department of Justice has not sent forth its so-called privilege log, so it's not explained yet why there might be certain redactions that have been made. I saw one document which was an email that was sent by Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, which was the forward of an email that he had received from some of his lawyers, giving an account of a conversation between Epstein lawyers and Trump lawyers and others about what had taken place during that 2009 period. It was during the period of the 2009 investigation. And Epstein's lawyers synopsized and quoted Trump as saying that that Jeffrey Epstein was not a member of his club at Mar-a-Lago, but he was a guest at Mar-a-Lago, and he had never been asked to leave. And that was redacted for some indeterminate, inscrutable reason. I know it seems to be at odds with some things that President Trump has been saying recently about how he had kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club or asked him to leave, and this was at least one report that appears to contradict it.
And Raskin doesn't seem to be frustrated just about individual redactions. He says the DOJ has been, in his words, quote, cover-up mode for months. And when asked what the next steps are, the Maryland congressman said this.
These materials could have been released long ago, but they're just being released now. And if every member of Congress who voted for the discharge petition, if all 217 of us spent every waking hour over at the Department of Justice, it would still take us months to get through all of those documents. A lot is riding on Attorney General Bondi's appearance before us on the Judiciary Committee on Wednesday.
Speaking of, Attorney General Pam Bondi's testimony before Congress took place today, and House lawmakers were grilling the Attorney General over the DOJ's handling of the release of 3 million pages involving Jeffrey Epstein and his alleged sex trafficking ring. Now, the goal of this testimony is for lawmakers to clarify whether the DOJ complied with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and if lawmakers believe that documents are still being withheld, the DOJ over-redacted material, or the department didn't comply with subpoenas, they can escalate the situation. They can seek court enforcement of congressional subpoenas, which would likely result in the release of new documents to lawmakers. Now, take a look at what we think are the greatest highlights of Pam Bondi's testimony today before Congress.
So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
You showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the way I asked it.
That the president, in fact, did know about his ties because he was the next door neighbor.
Shame on you.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
You're
this
from
is
a tiny,
pathetic.
beautiful
This is
state.
pathetic, Mr.
Committee will be in order.
I am not asking trick questions here.
You
The
got your
American
5
people
minutes.
have a right to know the answers to this. These are senior officials in the Trump administration. This is not a game, Secretary.
I'm Attorney General.
My apologies, I couldn't tell.
You may not like the answer, but she
Right.
gets to
The
answer.
question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like
Que-
the answer,
Reclaiming
Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest.
Reclaiming
So
my-
he asked a
Reclaiming my
4-minute
time.
question.
Restore 45
and
seconds to
I am
Mr. Nadler,
going
please,
to
Mr. Chairman.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Reclaiming-
Not on our time. No way.
Reclaiming-
And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me
Yeah, oh, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000.
Meanwhile, the investigation is ramping up. If you remember, House Oversight Chair James Comer had previously announced 5 depositions. The 5 depositions are Les Wexner, former CEO of Victoria's Secret, and by the way, the same name Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna revealed, was labeled an official co-conspirator by the FBI. Hillary and Bill Clinton, Epstein's accountant, and finally Epstein's lawyer.
We can confirm we have 5 more depositions in the book scheduled for the Epstein investigation. On February 18th, Lex Wexner, who is a financial client of Epstein and I believe the former CEO of Victoria's Secret. February 26th, we have former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. February 27th, former President Bill Clinton. March 11th, Richard Kahn, Epstein's accountant, and March 19th, Darren Endike, Epstein's lawyer. So we will continue to move forward and try to get answers for the American people.
And it's worth noting, a congressional deposition is different from a congressional hearing. In a hearing, members get 5 minutes each to question a witness. It's public, cameras are rolling, and a lot of it turns into grandstanding, as you may have seen in the clips we showed from Bondi's hearing. A deposition, however, is behind closed doors. The witness is placed under oath, and committee counsel from both the majority and minority parties gets extended, alternating time to question. Now, this could be hours as opposed to minutes. This is a private setting with no cameras, so these 5 depositions could potentially be more revealing than what we are currently seeing on C-SPAN. And on the legislative side, Senator Chuck Schumer is pushing a new bill called Virginia's Law, named after survivor Virginia Giuffre. That would eliminate the statute of limitations for survivors of sexual violence. Watch this.
Today I'm introducing Virginia's Law, legislation to end statute of limitation barriers that have kept survivors of sexual violence from justice far too long. Look at these nice faces. It shouldn't have happened to you. It shouldn't have happened to you. So, no survivor should ever be told again that the law failed them and that time mattered more than truth.
As of right now, even with all of this coming to light, all of these documents being released with troves of potential evidence, many alleged survivors still cannot pursue legal action due to the statute of limitations. So where does all of this stand? We have millions of documents still redacted, 5 major congressional depositions on the horizon, and a growing bipartisan push. Democrat Connor working with Republican Massey, Schumer pushing legislation to make sure this doesn't quietly disappear. But the question Connor keeps asking is the one that may matter most.
Who are they protecting?
Maybe with more Congress people looking at the unredacted files, we'll have an answer. But what do you think? If you want to stay on top of this story as it develops, subscribe. We'll be covering every deposition, every document drop, and every name that comes out of these files. If there's an aspect that you want us to cover, drop a comment below. As always, I'm Jakson Buhaj, and I will see you guys in the next one.